All right, welcome back to ABA Exam Review and our latest RBT Exam Practice Series. Here are some additional questions from Practice Exam 6 that we're going to review together. As always, if you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please subscribe. If you're looking for our study materials, check out btexamreview.com. That link is in the comments below. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout-out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Marcus wears special running socks that keep his feet in the right position as he runs through his neighborhood. The socks are not very comfortable for everyday use, however, so whenever he gets home, he takes his socks off and his feet are no longer uncomfortable. What consequence is represented relative to taking the socks off? We have a behavior question and specifically a consequence question. So when we have a consequence question, we're looking for reinforcement or punishment. So you can start one of two ways, right? Because we need to identify if it's going to be positive or negative, and then we need to identify whether the behavior increased or decreased. If it increased, it's reinforcement. If it decreased, it's punishment. Now, let's look at the situation. We're looking at Marcus, who wears these socks that keep his feet in this right position as he runs through his neighborhood. However, the socks are not very comfortable, so when he gets home, he takes his socks off, and what happens? His feet are no longer uncomfortable. So the consequence we're looking at is the fact that his feet are no longer uncomfortable, right? Because we're looking relative to taking the socks off. So antecedent, he gets home. Response, takes his socks off. Consequence, no longer uncomfortable. Now, let's start with positive or negative. The consequence was something added or removed. Well, something was removed, right? The feeling of being uncomfortable was removed. He took the socks off. He is no longer uncomfortable. Therefore, we are going to use negative in our consequence. Now we have to ask ourselves, is it reinforcing or punishing? Well, what does the future behavior look like? Or what is Marcus's typical behavior? The question says he wears these socks, but for everyday use, but when he gets home, he always takes the socks off. So Marcus always does this. So the consequence of no longer feeling uncomfortable leads to the continuation of the behavior, meaning Marcus is reinforced for taking the socks off by removing the uncomfort. So first, we're removing something, so we have to have negative, and then the behavior is continuing, therefore it's reinforcement. So what consequence is represented relative to taking the socks off? A, positive reinforcement. We're not adding something as a consequence, right? Something's being taken away, the feeling of being uncomfortable. So B, negative reinforcement, is what we're talking about. That's what we predicted. And then we have C and D, which are both punishment. If the consequence led to Marcus no longer taking the socks off, that would be punishing. Marcus continues to take the socks off. He's being reinforced. The consequence relative to taking socks off is B, negative reinforcement. Glenn's doctor informs his parents that he needs to eat more protein. If Glenn does not like eating turkey, ham, or eggs, but loves to eat strawberries and raspberries, what intervention or strategy might be effective for getting Glenn to eat the foods he does not like? Let's think about this, right? We have a situation where we're looking for the intervention or strategy to get Glenn to eat the foods he does not like. So the issue here is he doesn't want to eat turkey, ham, or eggs, but he loves strawberries and raspberries. So let's think about what we could do to use this to our advantage, right? He loves strawberries and raspberries, so they could potentially work as reinforcement. He hates turkey, ham, and eggs. What can we do to get him to eat more turkey, ham, or eggs? A, the Premack principle. What does the Premack principle say? The Premack principle says using the opportunity to engage in a high probability response or a high preferred response, in this case, eating strawberries and raspberries, as reinforcement for engaging in the less preferred response, like eating turkey or ham, is the Premack principle. So if we told Glenn, you can eat strawberries and raspberries, first you need to eat turkey, ham, and eggs, we'd be utilizing the Premack principle. A seems like a good strategy. What about B? A high probability request sequence. What if we said to Glenn, who can do these responses, we said, clap your hands, touch your nose, tell me your name, eat a bite of ham. We could definitely try that, and it might be effective, right? We're looking for an intervention that might be effective. So Premack principle could be effective. High P request sequence could be effective. What about positive reinforcement? Well, absolutely. We want to reinforce Glenn whenever he eats turkey ham or eggs. So if Glenn eats the turkey ham or eggs, and we use the pre-mac principle by letting him engage in the act of eating raspberries and strawberries, we're using positive reinforcement. So of these interventions, it looks like all three, the pre-mac principle, a high probability request sequence, and positive reinforcement might be effective. So our answer here is D, all the above. You are observing a behavior technician utilize a verbal prompt with their client. Target behavior is identifying numbers. The client appears to be learning the skill, but you aren't ready to get rid of the verbal prompt yet, although you want to see if the client can do it without the prompt. What might you recommend that would be non-intrusive? We're looking for something that would be non-intrusive. So ideally, the answer choice is not intrusive at all. However, we still need to pick the best answer, right? And so when we mean non-intrusive and we're talking prompts, what we mean is typically least to most prompting. With most to least prompting, we're starting errorless, right? Full physical prompts. Full physical prompts, very intrusive. We want something that won't be intrusive. And the situation is we are observing a technician, or yeah, you're observing a technician utilize a verbal prompt with the client, and the target behavior is identifying numbers. The client is learning the skill, but we don't want to get rid of the verbal prompt yet, although you want to see if the client can do it without the prompt. Now think about that. The client appears to be learning. However, we don't want to fade the verbal prompt yet. We just want to see if the client can do it without the prompt. Now, this is a more difficult question. This is essentially a behavior analyst question, which is fine because we're going to learn something. So if we're in a situation where we still want to use a prompt, but we want to allow the client the ability to answer without the prompt, there's a certain strategy we can use. Let's take a look. A, shifting to a graduated guidance procedure. A graduated guidance procedure is a physical prompting procedure. We want to be non-intrusive, eliminate A. What about most to least prompting? Well, we just talked about most to least prompting begins with physical prompting. We want to be non-intrusive, eliminate B. C, remove the prompt completely. In the question, it says we aren't ready to get rid of the prompt yet, so we don't want to remove the prompt. What we're likely going to do is something called a prompt delay. And with a prompt delay, you give the instruction, so show me 7. You wait and allow the learner an opportunity to respond, let's say 5 seconds, and then you give the prompt. In this case, we can see, is the client or the learner able to do it without the prompt? If not, we can still implement the prompt. That's called a prompt delay. Again, this is essentially a behavior analyst question, making it much more difficult than a lot of our other questions, but that's okay. You want to challenge yourself and you want to keep expanding your knowledge as much as possible, because the more you do that, the easier the exam becomes. You, a behavior technician, receive a text message on Friday from your supervisor. The text message says that you need to attend Sunday brunch with one of your clients, but you cannot bill for the hours. What should you do? Interesting question here, right? Kind of an ethical question. You're a behavior technician. You get a text message from your supervisor, and they say, well, you need to go to Sunday brunch with your client, but you can't bill. Now, what's the issue with that? One, you, the technician, are required to only engage with the client and their parents in a professional manner, meaning we don't have dual relationships, right? We don't cross personal and professional boundaries. We only engage professionally. So the issue with you going to Sunday brunch but not billing is that you're not there as the RBT then. You're just there as what looks like a babysitter or a friend, which ethically you can't do because you're crossing that dual relationship line. So that's a problem. So what should you do in this situation? A, follow your supervisor's instructions and attend brunch. Now remember, your supervisor is in charge. You have to work with them. However, sometimes you may disagree. And when you do, you have the right to tell them you disagree. In this case, you say, well, either I need to bill for these hours and work as the RBT, or I'm not going because I can't cross that line from professional to personal. B, only attend the brunch if you want to, since you will not be paid. Even if you want to go, you can't go. You can only be with this client in a professional technician capacity. No other way. C, do not attend a Sunday brunch. Yes. Your choice here, your only choice, is to not attend a Sunday brunch unless you're going to bill for the hours and you're going to work as the RBT. It's the only way you can go to this brunch. A teacher starts to use a response cost procedure each time a child tries to escape an assigned task. The response cost procedure involves the teacher removing a star from the student's star chart. The response cost procedure is effective at reducing task avoidance, but the teacher is not teaching a replacement behavior. What is likely to happen if the teacher stops the response cost procedure now? A lot going on, long question, difficult question. We've got some hard questions today, which is good, right? We're only getting better. We're talking about response cost, and response cost is what? Response cost is a negative punishment procedure where you remove a earned reinforcer contingent on behavior. In this case, each time the child escapes, right, what is the teacher doing? Well, the teacher removes a star from the star chart. That is the response cost, so it's punishment. And the response cost is good. It's effective. It's reducing task avoidance. But the teacher is not teaching a replacement behavior. Why is that an issue? Well, whenever we use punishment, we're decreasing some behavior. And when we decrease the behavior, we have to teach a replacement. If not, once punishment stops, that behavior is going to come back. Punishment is not permanent. Remember that. Punishment is not permanent. We always need to teach a replacement and reinforce that replacement. So if this teacher stops the response cost procedure now, what is likely to happen? A, task avoidance will remain decreased. Well, no. We never taught them a different behavior. So if we stop punishing one behavior without teaching them another, the punished behavior is likely to come back. Punishment is not permanent. B, task avoidance will increase back to prior levels. That's much more likely than remaining decreased. Because the behavior is no longer being punished, it's likely to come back. C, students will start to engage in aggression. Likely not. We're not punishing anymore, right? So why would they engage in aggression? There is no punishment-induced aggression without punishment. And then D, spontaneous recovery is likely to occur. Spontaneous recovery is associated with what? Extinction, right? And we're not talking about extinction here. We're talking punishment. What's likely to happen is task avoidance will increase back to prior levels. Punishment is not permanent. Very, very important to remember. If a client achieved an impressive behavior change, but that change was restricted to one setting or a specialized training setting, how might we describe that behavior change? Kind of a theoretical question, so let's think about it. We have a client who achieved an impressive behavior change. Awesome. Let's say they learned to read or say spell their name, right? You taught them in clinic to spell their name, but that change was restricted to one setting or a specialized training setting, meaning you taught them to spell their name in clinic, but they can't spell their name in their home. They can't spell their name at school. That's a problem. Okay, so how might we describe that behavior change? An impressive behavior change, but only one setting or a specialized training setting. A, the behavior change failed to generalize. Absolutely. Generalization, arguably the most important thing we do, right? Generalization says a learned behavior starts to appear in other places and settings and around other people outside of the training area. So this behavior change is not generalized. B, the behavior change likely holds limited value. Yes. And why would it hold limited value? What good is it if the client can spell their name, but only in clinic and not at home or school? It doesn't make any difference in their life, and that's what we're looking for. C, that behavior change produced widespread, meaningful change in the client's life. Well, it didn't. It's not widespread, right? It's one setting or a specialized training setting. That's a problem. So we would say the behavior change failed to generalize, and the behavior change likely holds limited value. So both A and B. Which of the following stimuli would likely be considered an unconditioned reinforcer? Let's finish off with an easier one. So we're looking for an unconditioned reinforcer. Let's think about conditioned reinforcers. Conditioned reinforcers are stimuli or items that are paired and they develop reinforcing properties. Unconditioned means there is no training involved, there's no learning involved. From the day we're born, these are reinforcers. That things like food, sleep, shelter, comfort, these kind of things. So are toy trains unconditioned? Well, no, right? Toy trains are obviously just an item that develops reinforcing properties for some people over time. What about tokens with Peppa Pig? Tokens are one of the main conditioned reinforcers, right? Because we pair tokens with other things. Same as money. Money holds no value until money is paired with other items. So what about a turkey sandwich? Now, we could say, well, not everybody likes turkey. That is true. But think about if you were starving in the desert, right? And even if you didn't like turkey, what are you likely to work for? In the desert, starving. Toy trains, tokens, money, or a turkey sandwich? Likely the sandwich. And that's kind of what we mean by unconditioned, right? At the core, given enough time, somebody's willing to work for it because we have to eat to survive. So a turkey sandwich would most likely be considered the unconditioned reinforcer. Thank you for watching. Check out btexamreview.com. That link is in the comments below. Like, subscribe, let us know when you pass. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.